What would you do if you were following a friend through the snow, only to notice their footprints were starting to grow, stretching impossibly with each step? For one Iranian woman, this wasn't a nightmare. It was what she saw on a dark winter morning, a chilling reminder that not everything that looks human is. Stories pass through families and turn into legends. My grandmother was an incredible storyteller, but there was one story she told differently. She spoke it softly, her eyes fixed somewhere far back in the snow-covered mountains of western Iran, and she always ended the same way. This story is true. Tonight, I'm going to tell it to you. Our story starts in a remote village in the Zagros Mountains of western Iran, a place where lives are interwoven like the threads of a Persian carpet. The winters there are harsh, burying the world in a deep blanket of snow for months. The jagged mountain peaks soften into white mounds against a gray sky. In this village lived a widow named Mina. Her husband's death years before left her to raise two small children alone. But Mina was resilient, a woman with calloused hands and a spirit that refused to break. Her life was a rhythm of duty and love. During the week, she worked at a small weaving house with other local women. It was a place of community and quiet solidarity. Her closest friend, Layla, worked at the loom right next to hers. The day this story begins, a heavy snow had fallen all night. The world outside was muffled and soft. It was still the deep, starless black before dawn, when the cold is most biting. Mina was already awake. Before her walk to the workshop, she had to ensure the fire would last and soup was ready for her children. She bundled up in layers of wool, pulling a heavy scarf around her head and shoulders. Her children were still asleep under a pile of blankets. Looking at them, she felt the fierce, protective love that fueled her. It was for them she would walk into the cold, dark morning. Stepping outside, the cold was a physical shock. The snow was knee-deep, a pristine, unbroken expanse of white. The village was utterly still, suspended in silence. Mina began her walk. The weaving house was a 15-minute journey on a clear day, but in this snow it was a trek. Each step was an effort. The only sound was the soft whump of snow under her boots. It was then that she saw it. Up ahead, a tall figure cloaked in dark fabric walked in the same direction. Mina squinted. The posture. It was familiar. It had to be Layla, her friend who was also an early riser. A wave of relief washed over her. She wasn't alone. "Layla!" she called out, but her voice was swallowed by the snow-laden air. The figure didn't stop or turn. It just continued its steady pace. Mina frowned. Perhaps the wind had carried her voice away. She didn't call out again. It felt wrong to disturb the profound stillness. Instead, she resigned herself to following, walking in the tracks the figure left behind. It was easier than forging her own path, so she walked, the village fading behind her. Now it was just her, the figure ahead, and the vast empty landscape. The silence returned, deeper this time. She focused on the footprints, falling into their steady rhythm. But a strange detail began to prick at her awareness. The figure ahead made no sound. Mina could hear the crunch of her own boots, but from the person in front, nothing, just silent forward motion. It was odd. She also noticed the way the figure walked, a smooth gliding motion, almost too smooth. There was no bobbing of the head or swing of the arms. People trudge in deep snow. They fight it. This figure simply moved. The unease grew, a cold knot tightening in her stomach. She was now halfway to the workshop, suspended in a world of white, alone with this silent, gliding figure. Something was very wrong. By the way, if you're finding this story as unsettling as we do, and you enjoy tales from the world's forgotten corners, do us a favor and hit the like button and share it. And if you have a family story that still gives you chills, we'd love to hear it in the comments. Now let's get back to the story. Mina stopped, her breath held tight. She watched the dark shape continue its unhurried pace. Why hadn't Layla waited? They walked this path together almost every morning, Layla would have waited. She looked down at the footprints she had been following. Standard boot prints, maybe a little larger than her own. She took a few more steps, her eyes glued to the tracks. And then she saw it. The change was so subtle at first, she thought she was mistaken. The footprint just ahead of her seemed longer. The one after that was longer still, and wider. Her heart gave a hard thump. She looked up at the figure, then back down at the snow. She walked again, but slowly. She wasn't following anymore. She was investigating. Each step confirmed the impossible truth. The footprints were growing. The tracks were stretching, widening, transforming from the shape of a human boot into something else entirely. The length of a forearm, then the length of a man's leg. A chill that had nothing to do with the weather shot through her. This wasn't Layla. This wasn't a person at all. Iranian folklore is filled with stories of supernatural jinn and other beings that haunt desolate places, creatures that can take a familiar form to lure you away from safety. My grandmother never named what Mina was following, but every childhood warning must have come rushing back. She stood frozen, staring at the last footprint. It was enormous, a vast, oblong depression in the snow, easily 10 feet long. It wasn't a footprint, it was a crater. Her eyes traced the line of gigantic tracks as they continued, becoming a massive trench carved into the landscape. She looked up at the dark figure, now a small speck in the distance, still gliding silently away. The realization crashed down on her. It wasn't just that the thing was inhuman, it was that it had been walking on 2 feet, revealing its true scale with each step. The human-sized prints were a lie. It had been walking on the very tips of its toes, pretending to be small. And only now, away from the village, was it slowly lowering its heels, revealing its true, monstrous size. The sheer, calculated deception of it was what broke her paralysis. This was an intelligence, a predator. Terror broke the spell. All Mina could think about were her children, asleep and safe. She was out here, in the domain of something else. She didn't run. That would be foolish in knee-deep snow. Instead, she turned and began to walk back, placing her feet carefully in the same holes she had made on her way out. She fought the overwhelming urge to look over her shoulder, terrified of what she might see. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was menacing. The mountains weren't sleeping giants. They were ancient, watching entities. She focused on her own footprints, the only familiar thing in this now alien landscape. Finally, she saw the soft shapes of the village houses, smoke rising from a few chimneys. Relief, so powerful it made her knees weak, washed over her. She didn't slow down until she reached her own front door. Slipping inside, she leaned against it, her chest heaving, the warmth, the smell of wood smoke, the quiet breathing of her children. She was safe. She didn't go to the weaving house that day. Later that afternoon, Layla knocked, her face etched with worry. "Mina, are you all right? I waited for you this morning. When you didn't show up, I got worried." Mina stared at her. You were on the path this morning?" Layla shook her head. "No, I was late today. My youngest has a cough, so I didn't leave until well after dawn. I thought you might be sick." The confirmation made the morning's events terrifyingly real. It hadn't been a dream. Taking a deep breath, Mina told Layla everything. The silent figure, the familiar walk, and the footprints that grew from the size of a boot to the size of a grave. Layla listened, her eyes widening. She didn't laugh. She gripped Mina's arm, her own hand trembling. "Mina," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper heavy with generations of belief, "you were right to turn back. That thing, it wasn't me, it was something else. It shows you what you want to see, what feels familiar, until it has you far enough away. You are lucky you noticed, very lucky." My grandmother would always end the story there. Mina never spoke of it again to anyone but Layla. In a world of tangible struggles, who had time for impossible stories? but the experience marked her. She never again walked to work before the sun was fully in the sky. For the rest of her life, she would cast a wary eye towards the vast, empty snowfields, acknowledging what she knew was out there. This story, carried from a village in the Zagros Mountains, through my grandmother, to me, and now to you, is more than a ghost story. It's a glimpse into a world where the veil between what we know and what we don't is incredibly thin. A reminder that ancient folklore is often born from real moments of inexplicable fear. So what was it that Mina followed? A jinn, a div, or something older, nameless? What did it want? And what would have happened if she hadn't noticed the footprints? We are left with questions that have no answers. All we have is the story my grandmother swore was true.